Welcome to the Near Memo, a weekly conversation about search, social, and commerce. What happened, why it matters, and the implications for local.
So that's a kind of good segue for you, David, to talk about Gowalla. Gowalla reemerged after essentially 14 years. It was just, the history is it launched in 2008 or 9.
8 or 9, yeah.
Yeah, it was the primary competitor of Foursquare at the time.
Does that define us? The fact that we all remember Gowalla, that sort of defines who we are, sort of old white guys?
Well, speak for yourself.
Well, okay, white guys.
Well, no. I mean,
of a certain age.
It doesn't define me that I knew I was around when Gowalla launched. But yes, I remember the Gowalla's launch, and I remember using Gowalla and Foursquare for check-ins, and then Yelp did it, and so on and so forth. But launched around 2009, bought in 2011 by Facebook, shut down the next year, which indicates Facebook just bought it to shut it down as a competitor at the time.
Yeah.
And now Josh Williams is back. I think, if I'm getting his name correct, I don't remember. 14 years later, relaunching Gowalla. It looks kind of the same. I didn't do a then and now comparison. And David, you have some thoughts about it.
Yeah, so I was I don't know if I was a heavy Gowalla user. I was certainly a monthly active Gowalla user for a period of maybe a year and a half. I also was a probably close to monthly active user on Foursquare, though not nearly as active as I was on Gowalla. I know that the media narrative at the time, and even still potentially today, was that it was Foursquare and Gowalla were sort of competitors, and it was all about check-ins and all this stuff. And I always had a slightly different take on Gowalla's utility for me personally, and sort of the raison d'etre of both apps, right? Like Foursquare was a very sort of competitive.
Become the mayor. Become
the mayor. Look at me. Look at all the cool places I've gone. Yeah. I actually never got that vibe from Gowalla. I've always felt that it had more of a like a personal element to it, where it was like a passport, right? Where I was collecting stamps of like the kinds of places I had been to, and sort of a visual history of my travel experiences, right? In some way. And there was even in the relaunch, which I don't recall exactly what it looked like 14 years ago, but in the relaunch, there's a much more sort of personal element. It's almost like a hybrid of your contact list plus Nextdoor, where it's like it's a much more community vibe than Foursquare, I think, was ever able to achieve. Certainly than Yelp would be able to achieve with a similar product.
It seems that small group, the iMessage group, is where it has its chance of being really successful.
Agreed. So I'm not going to speak at all today to the sort of business model. How is Gowalla going to make money? All of those kinds of questions. I don't know. Maybe Josh Williams doesn't need the money because the Facebook sale was so great, whatever, which I think would be great. I think it would be a huge shame if Gowalla went down the sort of video-oriented route. I think I am clearly the target of Gowalla's UI in terms of someone who just wants a list of curated businesses that I can like immediately sort of in 1 second be able to look at and make a quick decision one way or another on. So I hope that they do not sort of go with this herd mentality.
Okay, forget everything. Forget everything I said. If he says
no, I just. They very well may go that direction. I'm saying as a potential Gowalla user, I actually was on, somehow they must have saved my email address from years ago, or maybe I opted into a sort of beta program I wasn't aware of. But I got an email maybe 5 or 6 weeks ago about, hey, try out the beta of this on a test flight situation. So I went onto there, and interestingly, their data quality, I won't say quality. The breadth of their data was very poor in Portland. Like they were missing 3 or 4 very popular sort of coffee shop. Even I'm not looking for accountants or something on Gowalla. Just like businesses where I would expect that they would have had them in their data set. They didn't have them at the time, and so I wonder like where are they?
Maybe they revived their old
did they
data.
use a data source at all, or is this totally like sort of self-generated? From users, which is another kind of interesting take, that there is potentially an opportunity here for for sort of a feel-good moment for the user to add a business to the list that they had a great experience about. Great experience.
Well, they have a thing that they're calling this a street team, and it looks like a kind of Yelp elite squad style strategy. And these people are paying to be part of this, and presumably they will be adding data and adding content. I mean, I would like to see it succeed because I think we need more consumer-facing options in local. And I agree that it would be great to have, even for people who live in a particular community. I during the pandemic, obviously, I didn't go out to dinner. I didn't go out to many restaurants. I've gone, out to a few restaurants, but our behavior changed a lot, and we eat out far less than we used to. And so when I think about places to go to lunch or places to go to dinner, I'm kind of at a loss, even in my own community. So it would be useful to have access to some kind of quick reference list, maybe even across a whole bunch of categories. I mean, it seems to be right now, basically eating places and things to do kinds of, what entertainment, hospitality and entertainment are the categories, I think.
It seems to me that the real value comes not just from the local curation, but from the local curation of your peers and friends, that if it can get that, you bring a group of friends in with you, then you can see if they go to a new place, you can base your judgment on whether you should try that new place. So it offers the promise of solving the social media issue that Facebook promised to solve and always backed away from in that. And what was the product that Snap bought and closed down, the mapping product?
Zenly.
And that had
Zenly,
what is it?
Zenly. Zenly.
They had like 35 million daily users, right? Or some big number.
They had millions of users. I don't know what the precise number was.
That was one of the examples that Josh Williams highlighted in his TechCrunch interview of like why he thinks that there is, that product got to scale, right? Like the concept has sort of proven relatively successful in relatively recent memory. So.
Well, and he also cited Find My Friends on, the sort of the iMessage illusion that you made, Mike, the way in which people are casually using location on the iPhone of their friends as a kind of not a social network exactly, but I think the small group idea is a good idea, and has many different dimensions to it. It does, the business model question, which we don't need to talk about right now, is a question with all these things. But I do think we need the local space to be shaken up on a consumer basis. We need more options than what we have. Because
and I would also, on that note, I would also say that, and I don't know that Josh Williams said this in the interview, but it feels to me like people are more open to trying a different local search experience than they were even in 2008 and 2009 when Foursquare and Gowalla were sort of hot. I think that, Google was just crushing it, and they're obviously still crushing it today. But there's this new sort of zeitgeist that Google search results are getting crappier, and there's clearly a sort of very TikTok curious crowd. And I think people are a little bit more open to potentially breaking their habit right now in this early 2023 moment post-pandemic. I do think it's a pretty good time for a new, old, retro local search product to try something. So
he did mention that idea, and I think he also mentioned it in the context of privacy, right? I mean, I think it makes sense if it's private the same way Find Mine is private. In other words, that they're not selling this data to target you with ads. And he stated that he went down that path erroneously with the initial Gowalla, and that he thinks that there is a different way to make money, which is this type of subscription service and others, and that he doesn't need to market the people that use it.
Meanwhile, the FBI has bought all of the Foursquare data from the last 14 years.
Or that Christian organization that bought all the priest data, right?
Exactly.
Right?
Well, I mean, that's a whole different discussion about the horrors of the sale of location data. But I think that one of the problems is VC funding. So if he's going to, I don't know he's got some angel investors.
He does have a investor. Yeah, I think Ziegler was one of his investors.
Yeah, he's got some angel investors probably, and he's put his own money into it. But if he goes the traditional VC route and raises a bunch of money, he's going to be forced to distort. What this needs to do is it needs to grow organically. And if he takes $10 million, $20 million, whatever it is, he's going to be forced into this kind of, traditional, gotta scale rapidly, gotta throw a understood business model at it. And, subscriptions is acceptable. But I think that that's the wrong way to go. I mean, if they can grow this organically and figure out the business model as they go, that's going to be a better path for them. And I do agree with you that there is I don't have a lot of empirical data to support this, but I just know this anecdotally. We've talked about it a lot. There is an openness to alternatives to Google in search and in local search in particular. I mean, the TikTok illustration of the 40% go to TikTok or Instagram for restaurant discovery is validation of that idea. And people are just hungry for something, so to speak, different than what they've got. I mean, Google is a utility. It's very useful in a lot of situations, but it's kind of flat. It's also kind of, it at once gives you too much information and not enough information, I feel like, So. Yep.
Good opportunity for Gowalla.
And others. Hopefully others will do some interesting things. I mean, there was a time when there were all kinds of competitors, events competitors, travel competitors, local competitors of various stripes, search, different kinds of directories, and some of those still exist today. But it's really the market has cleared out almost completely in terms of real options for people. All right. Looks like we've come to the end of another exciting episode of the Near Memo. Tell your friends about Near Media. Subscribe to our newsletter. We need lots of organic word-of-mouth growth, so go out there and be our advocates, and we'll handsomely reward you at some point.
With great content.
Yes, exactly. Thanks, everybody, as always, for listening, and we'll see you next week, I believe, for a discussion of the local search ranking factors with Darren Shaw, hopefully.
Awesome.
Thanks for joining David, Mike, and Greg. To stay on top of the latest developments in local, subscribe to our newsletter at nearmedia.co. We'll see you next week.